Every single turn, he's going to methodically make that black king move down, down, down where he doesn't want to be. It's pretty simple. Today, chess kids, we're really going to have some fun. We're going on a king hunt, that's right. Much like in the cartoons, that king can be a wascally wabbit, but if we play the right way, we're going to get to play the game of our lifetime. Couple of things when you're thinking about going hunting for a king. First of all, bring your slingshot, right? No, just kidding. I need you to make sure that you calculate really deeply, because a lot of times when you try to get that enemy king to walk down the board, you have to sacrifice something, okay? Number two, try not to let the king retreat back to his own side of the board. I would say that for every rank you make that enemy king come closer to you, your chances of checkmate go up like 20%. Ooh. If he reaches your first rank, it's almost certainly going to be a checkmate. And number three, you really want to limit the choices by your opponent, because if you can predict where he's going to go next, it's going to be much easier to chase that king. Let's see my ideas in action. In this position, black has just played f5 and our queen is clearly in danger. Now here, the queen has a perfectly safe square and white might be okay after this move. We could always go attack the king on the b file later on. But actually, if we calculate really deeply, as the Grandmaster did, we're going to make that black king go on a king hunt. Queen takes knight. If he doesn't take back, well, he's breaking the rules. It's the only move. Remember what I said? We're limiting options? Okay, now after king takes back, we know it's going to be a knight move to create a discovered check. There are two different double checks. That's the most forcing move in chess. But which one of these moves prevents a black retreat? It's knight takes d4. If you play knight to e5 check, you cut off your own bishop, and the black king can walk back. Now you might be screaming at your screen, hey Fun Master Mike, this discovered check wins the queen. Yeah, but it costs you a queen to do this, you're not even really going to be ahead. Better is the move played in the game. As we said, knight takes d4, double check. How many legal moves does black have? Only one. That's going to be the theme for most of this, king over, okay? Now let's get our rook in the game. Rook to b1 check. This is the only point in the game where black has two different choices, but it doesn't really matter. He chooses the square a6, and we actually force him to a5 anyway, so it's one extra move, but no big deal. Bishop to b7, and watch the funny way that white wins the game. Every single turn, he's going to methodically make that black king move down, down, down where he doesn't want to be. It's pretty simple. The king moves to a5, we check him again. The king moves to a4, we check him again. He has to take. Notice black has no options the whole time. We check him again. The king moves down, we check him again. And finally, the king moved to the square a1. If the king had gone to a3, we're going to play the exact same checkmate. After king to a1, you can play knight to b3 checkmate, or you can play knight to c2. It is your choice. A pretty fun king hunt to get us started today. Now, let's look at another example of the same thing. This game was played more than 100 years ago, but every strong player knows it. White has a big lead in development and plays queen takes h7. Wow, he must be sure by giving away his queen that he's going to have a checkmate. The king must take. Now we've got two different double checks with our knight, but we do want to destroy some of black's defenders, so it makes much more sense to take on the square f6. There's actually an additional reason we want to take that bishop. That's to make sure our knight covers the square g8. Black actually does have a choice here. He could move his king back. Now I say the word choice, I only mean that literally. It wasn't a great choice because knight to g6 is a very fancy double knight mate. Notice how important it is to cover the g8 square. So if we back up, the black king instead has to go to the square h6. And now, just like our last game, we're only going to give that black king one legal move every turn. Knight on e to g4. King moves up, and one of the advantages of the enemy king coming closer to you is that your pawns become attackers. That's a key concept when you're on the king hunt. So we play h4, the king only has one legal move. We play g3, he's got to keep coming. Remember I said the chances of checkmate go up like 20% every time he walks one rank closer to you. Bishop to e2 check, he must go down to g2, rook to h2 check, he's got to go to the first rank, and as promised, the chances of checkmate are 100%. My only critique is, why did white play king to d2 checkmate? Much fancier is the castle checkmate. You can't not take the option of castling to give mate. That's a once in a lifetime thing. Okay, obviously it doesn't matter. White wins anyway, and we're off to the next example of getting that wascally wabbit. And this game was played 150 years ago in The Hague. Sounds like an ancient sports arena, doesn't it? No, it's a city in the Netherlands. All right, white to move. We want to draw that black king closer, and yet another queen sack. Now, don't think every king hunt starts with a queen sacrifice. They just tend to be some of the most beautiful examples. Okay, if the king doesn't take, it's going to be queen and helper mate on the next turn. So king takes. Now, I want to put you to the test, chess kids. Which check will force the king closer to the white army, but will not allow the king to duck back into his home? I hope you found the move knight to e6. It's really important to create that discovered check, but also guard the g7 square. Now black can put some things in the way, but we'll just take them with our bishop. That doesn't actually help. So black instead walked his king down the board. Bishop to e2 check. He has but one option. He's got to go to the square h4. And now in this position, white could have won simply, or he could have won more fancy. The simple way to win is to use those pawns again. Pawn to g3. The king only has one legal chess move, and because we have two knights attacking the f4 square, you can plop either one of them there, and when black takes, you simply take back. But you are experienced chess kids. I'm going to give you a challenge question. We're going to go back to this position, and we're going to pretend that only one white knight exists. You see what I've done there? I have zapped the white knight on d5. He's gone, which makes it more challenging because you can't play the same checkmate I just showed you. I want you to pause your videos and see if you can be a king hunter here and still checkmate the black king. If you found rook f4, I don't know what to say other than I do not want to go hunting with you because you are better than me. Rook to h4 check. Now the knight has to capture. Only move g3. What we've done is we've distracted the black knight onto the square we want to checkmate on. Now the king still has to go here, and knight takes knight is checkmate. I hope you enjoyed my challenge question. We are on to the next king hunt. This time white is Jose Capablanca. He keeps coming up in every video, it seems. That guy was a good world champion. This is also going to show you that you don't always have to have a big army, nor do you always have to sacrifice your queen to give checkmate. Here, white begins the attack by d6 check. The bishop is pinned, the queen is pinned, and if the king takes, well, you know, rook d1 check wins the black queen. So, the question is, what does black do? He has to keep guarding his queen, but if he plays king to d8, we'll actually play queen to b6 check. That forces the king into the open, and it's going to be mate really soon after rook c1. That wouldn't be much of a king hunt because the black king never came out. So the only other option for black is to move his king to e6. And now we have a bit of geometry, the study of shapes. We're going to be playing a lot of queen checks here that just barely get our queen to the closer goal of checkmating the king. We're going to start with queen b3 check. He takes our pawn, rook d1's coming. So he's got to move over. Then queen to d3 check. It may look like white's just moving his queen around, but there's actually a reason behind all this madness. Okay, now the king decides to go to the square g5. If instead the king had walked to the square e6, we're actually going to see this happen later on, then queen to c4 check. Again, if he takes the pawn, that loses the queen. And if he comes out, which is the only other move, then queen to g4 is mate. Let's go back to the actual game then. The king decided to move to the square g5, and then we had queen to e3 check. Okay, I know he's got a couple of options, but this one leads to mate in 2. I hope you can find it. g4 check. Okay, I guess black could give up his queen, but that wouldn't help very much. When the king walks down, the checkmate is on h6. So if we go back to this position, the only other choice for black is to move his king over to f5. Then our queen inches her way forward. If the king moves here, we play check, the king goes back, and we have a mate that we've already seen. These patterns just keep on occurring over and over. So the only other option is to go back to this square, but then we play queen c4 check, and we finally force black to take our pawn. Remember, if he moves here, we've seen this twice already, but now for a third time, queen g4 is mate. And if he takes this pawn, well, rook to d1 wins the queen, and because the white queen's going to take this and have a strong pass pawn, Capablanca went on to win the game. Wow, my brain is spinning in circles, but we still have time for one more example. Here, we're going to play black, and I believe the first move is the easiest one of the day. Rook h1 check, there's no tricks there. Let's start the process of making that wascally wabbit come toward us. King to f2. Now you might see that this knight is guarding g2, and you might be thinking, hey, if we sacrifice the rook, and he takes the queen, well, we have mate. Well, that wouldn't be much of an example now, would it? But of course you realize that the king will take back, and the whole goal is to make that white king come closer to us. So much stronger is g3 check. White king has to capture, of course. And after the white king captures, now we get to use our idea. Rook takes knight. And it turns out this bishop and queen battery combined with our pawns is strong enough to force mate. Queen takes. Ow. Queen takes g2 check. Okay, now there actually is a choice here for white. However, if the king chooses to go to the side of the board, not usually a good example when you're trying to survive, g5 check, king up, and now we need to add a new piece to the attack. Remember like 30 levels ago when we talked about improving the worst piece? Well, now's the time to do it. This rook on a8's our worst piece, and you can either move your king up, or even better, is to castle because you prevent any checks when you do that. And this rook is going to make his way over eventually to get to the square h8. I don't think white can stop it forever. Okay, let's go back to the actual game. And here, white decided to move his king to the center where there's a few more squares that black has to control. However, after king to f4, we play g5 anyway. He only has one move. Queen to e4 check, we're bringing him closer to our army. And here, white decided to give up. Let's take a look why. If the king moves here, we improve our worst piece again. And there's no real good way to stop rook c6 mate. In fact, there's not even a bad way. Let's go back. The only other option was to move the king here, and now we're going to bring that king closer. Queen check, king here, queen check, king here, and you got two options. You can play king e7, but you know what I'm voting for. I'm voting for castle's queenside mate, because how often do you get to do that? Boys and chess girls, when you want to draw the other king into a king hunt, you must calculate deeply. You must not let the king retreat back to safety, and you want to limit the options by your opponent. If you do all those things, you're going to play the game of the century.